good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are back to a normal live session after last week's pre-recorded event. I was on a little expedition in the Rocky Mountains, but we were able to pull together a nice pre-recorded event before that. So I hope you enjoyed last week's event. We had a great update from Grant and the team in Fiji. We had new curiosities, new experiments. So it's pretty much the same kind of event, just without that live aspect that we usually have. So I want to get right into it because we have so much to cover in today's event. And the very first thing I want to do is cover what is going on with Oosterschelde. So it is a new phase of the expedition, you would say. The ship has reached the northern island of New Zealand. You can see right here if I zoom in a little bit. Now, the ship is going to stay put here for a little bit. If we back out a little bit, you can see why we're staying put for a little bit. We have spent the last few months crossing this massive expanse of ocean. We crossed the Pacific Ocean. And as you can imagine, once we left South America, there was not a lot of areas to stay very long, to get resupplied, to find things that the ship needs, wear and tear, sailing across the ocean. We've had some rough weather. Lots has been going on. So for the next month, the Oosterschelde will be here on the northern island of New Zealand and undergoing some much needed maintenance. So while that's happening, we're still going to have the world's most exciting classroom events. We're going to have all kinds of guest speakers come and join us. A lot of them will be from Australia and New Zealand, so that should be pretty cool. The experiments, the curiosities, everything will continue as per usual. And then once that time frame ends, you see that we're going to head across to Australia and continue the journey of the DARWIN200 and, of course, our world's most exciting classrooms. So that's a little update on where we are. As per usual, don't forget, we have these great video clips from all the way along. This one they've been as they made their way across New Zealand. You're looking through the sails there in the background. Let's pick one more here. Let's try this one. Here we go. Here's another one. Let's pick the sunset. And then there's always learning going on the ship. If I pick this one here, you can see when the passengers get on board, the captain or a member of the crew will spend a lot of time showing them how the sails work on the ship, why we're raising and lowering sails at certain times. So you can see here, the passengers on board are getting a lesson from the captain about using the sails and what they'll be doing during the time that they're there. Okay, let's come back from that screen share and let's get right back into it. We're going to take a little virtual field trip right now. It has been a while since we caught up with our friends at Eden Project in Cornwall, home to the world's largest captive rainforest. It is such a beautiful place. I'm hoping to visit when the Oosterschelde arrives in July back in the UK. As always, we have the amazing Robbie Kirkman backstage with us. Let me get him in here right now. Hey, Robbie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Joe. Very good.
Great, Robbie. So good to see you. It is starting to get cold here in Canada. I hear the running water. I see the sun. It looks like it's a beautiful spot to be there in Cornwall at Eden Project today.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's absolutely beautiful here today. Blue skies, and the rainforest biome is super, super hot. It's just insulating us and keeping all that heat in. So I'm sweltering, actually.
All right. Perfect. Well, Robbie, I'm going to let you take over for a little bit. I'm going to hide out backstage. So classrooms that are tuning in via YouTube, send in some questions via the chat, and I'll work some of those in for Robbie. We'll visit some camera classrooms as well. But yeah, for now, let's get right into it. We need to explore this rainforest biome.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Joe. So yeah, I'm Robbie. I'm here at Eden Project in Cornwall in the UK. I am standing inside the world's largest rainforest in captivity. And the plan really is just to tell you a little bit about Eden Project, just so you understand what Eden Project actually is, but really to actually spend a bit of time in our rainforest biome, go for a bit of a mooch about, and have a look at some of the plants and their adaptations, because we have plants in our tropical rainforest biome that would ordinarily be found from across the world's rainforests. Now, if you're wondering about Eden Project, And what it's all about, well, essentially what we did is we took a big hole in the ground, an old quarry, and we transformed it into what you can see around me today. So I'm standing in the rainforest biome. It's about 1.5 hectares, so to the size of 2 football pitches, absolutely massive space. And the purpose of the Eden Project really is here to inspire people to take action for the planet. So to demonstrate what we can all do for the environment, how we can do better by nature, and bring people on that journey so that they go home and they want to actually carry on with those important actions and perpetuate that message in their own lives. So the rainforest biome is 55 meters tall. So I'll just pan up to the roof and you can see our roof there. You can see those panels, those hexagonal panels are made of something called ETFE, which is a type of plastic, and those panels are actually 3 layers thick, so that traps lots and lots of, well, basically creates a large pillar of air, so that insulates the biome. It traps lots of heat in here, so that means it's nice and warm for the plants. And not only that, we have over 1,000 species of plants that are actually growing in our biome here. Conditions are pretty perfect for these plants to grow. It's warm, it's wet, and today it's really sunny. Although in the middle of winter, sometimes some of the plants do struggle a bit because they're not getting the intensity of sunlight that they would normally get in the tropics. So what I think we should do really is just go for a bit of a wander around, have a think about actually what are some of the challenges for the plants that are actually trying to grow in the tropical rainforest, and then look at some of the adaptations and some of the ways that plants actually meet those challenges. So there's all sorts of challenges that plants face in tropical rainforests. They've got to deal with too much water very often and actually trying to channel water away from them. Plants can drown if they stay underwater for too long. They have to deal with pests and diseases. Plants can't run away, so they have to deal with those pests and diseases, maybe through using defenses, thorns, prickles, spikes, poisons, things like that. They're in competition for sunlight. You've got all these plants growing incredibly furiously. Check out the bamboo behind me here. And those plants are all in competition for that sunlight. And something like bamboo that you can see on the screen there, that grows about 40 centimeters per day in the wild. So that will outcompete a lot of plants in a race to get the sunlight. They're also obviously competing under the ground to get enough nutrients. So that's just some of the challenges that the plants are facing. So I reckon if I show you some plants, we could actually look at some of the ways they get around some of those challenges. I'm just going to flip my camera around, which is a bit of a faff, but it's worth doing because it means that you guys will be able to get a better view of the plants that I really want to show you. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully you're now looking the other direction. You don't have to see my face anymore. And I'm actually going to settle the camera on this plant here, which is actually coffee. Now, coffee is obviously one of the world's most valuable food and beverage commodities. But the reason I'm checking out coffee with you guys is in terms of adaptations, it's really interesting. I have a particular adaptation, which you can see here, which is designed to actually help that rainwater run down the center of the leaf and drip really effectively off the tip of the leaf. A bit like how water drips off the tips, the sort of metal spokes on an umbrella. So the water will collect in the center of the leaf and it will drip off the tip really efficiently. And that will help to keep the leaf dry, which will mean if it's dry, it's much less likely to get algae and mold and things like that growing on the leaf. The more algae that grows on the leaf, that will basically create a layer which will end up blocking out the light which the plant needs for photosynthesis. And also, if you actually have a look, you can see some coffee cherries here. So those green ones there, they're not ripe yet. They go red when they're ripe. So at the moment, I couldn't even burst all of those open because they're hard. They're like bullets at the moment. But when they're red and ripe, you can squish them between your fingers and you'll see 2 coffee cherries emerge. Ooh, just seen the traveler's palm. That's a pretty cool shot. So yeah, this one here, This is called the traveler's palm. It's this palm that's in front of me in the center of the screen, and it's kind of fanning out. Now, this plant is native to Madagascar, and it's really cool. It's got some amazing adaptations because in the wild, what it does is the plant it fans out in an east to west direction, which means it can maximize the absorption of sunlight through those giant leaves that you can see in the center of the screen. Not just that, the reason it's called the traveler's palm is because it fans out in an east-west direction. If you're a lost traveler and you come across a traveler's palm, you can work out which way you're facing. You can use the plant like a compass. So it's a really, really beautiful plant, very useful plant. You can also get water from the stems of the traveler's palm as well. And just check out those massive leaves designed to absorb as much sunlight as possible. Okay. Ooh. I don't think I've got much to say about this apart from I wish that you guys could smell what I can smell, because this plant here, if I rub the stem with my nail and then I can smell this really strong smell of spice, and this is the cinnamon plant, okay, which is actually an invasive plant in places like the Seychelles. It actually outcompetes lots of other plants, but it smells absolutely beautiful, and actually one of my favorite spices. Okay, so we're actually in a part of the biome that we call oceanic islands now. So when the boat's on the voyage, it's been some of those oceanic islands, this is kind of this part of our biome. And as I wander up the path here, I'm going to come across a really iconic plant. Oh, actually, I am going to come across that iconic plant, but I've got something else I really want to show you first. We'll get there, because I'd like to show you this plant first. Now, this is called taro. And the reason I would like to show you taro is because of the adaptations that the leaves possess. So I've got some water here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to spray that water onto this leaf. I just want you to watch what happens to that water. Hopefully you can see that the water collects on the leaf, but it doesn't attach itself to the leaf. The leaf isn't wet where the water's been. It simply runs around the surface of the leaf, and then it drops off the end, and the leaf where the water's been is still dry. So that leaf is incredibly what we call hydrophobic. It repels the water, and the surface of that leaf isn't actually that dissimilar to like the surface of your tongue. It's bumpy, but it's also waxy. So I mean, you probably haven't got a waxy tongue, but the leaf surface is also waxy, and that basically it stops the water from being able to make a really good connection with the surface of the leaf, and it means the water will run off and run away, and the leaf is left behind nice and dry. It's not getting algae growing on it. There's lots of ants on it though, and then it can collect the sunlight it needs for photosynthesis. So really cool plant. It's also edible if you dig up the roots, but you got to cook them. Got to cook them first, otherwise they're really corrosive. They will not do you any good. Okay, sorry, I got distracted. Anyway, this plant here was the one I was going to head towards. This plant is called the coco de mer, and our coco de mer here is only about 15 years old. It's only a baby, really. But the reason I show you the coco de mer is from an adaptations point of view. I mean, it speaks for itself, really. Check out those giant leaves, perfectly designed for collecting sunlight. And not only that, those leaves are corrugated. They're ridged, which means that when water lands on them, it's channeled along the leaf, and the water is very quickly shed from the leaf. It doesn't stay on the leaf. The other thing about the coco de mer as well, which is super cool, is that coco de mer actually produces the largest seed in the world. And it happens to basically look like a giant bum. Okay, so that is the seed of the coco de mer, and they come from the Seychelles. I think there's basically only 2 islands in the Seychelles where the coco de mer grows, and the population is actually in danger because unfortunately those seeds, because they look so iconic in the past, they've been stolen from the wild, which obviously means that the population can't sustain itself. Okay. Ooh, these are quite cool.
Robbie, I'm going to pop in with a question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Robbie, the rainforest around the world, they're pretty darn biodiverse. So many plants, so many animals. About what percentage of life on land can we find in our rainforests?
Okay, so scientists think it's around 50%. Okay, so of plants and animals, terrestrial plants and animals. So yeah, a massive wealth of biodiversity. And when you put that into context with the fact that the rainforests only cover about 2 to 3% of the Earth's surface, it sort of tells us that there isn't that much of it, but it's super biodiverse and it's super important. It's imperative that we must look after it.
So, Robbie, while you're moving through the biome, we have a question from a class in Florida, and they're wondering what kind of special things need to be done to keep a rainforest alive indoors.
Yeah, good question. So obviously it's not a natural environment in here, and we're growing a rainforest in the UK. We're not growing it on the equator. So we have to make sure that we spend a lot of time thinking about how we water the biomes. We have to make sure the plants get enough water. And sometimes that means using massive hose pipes in particular parts of the biomes just to make sure that those areas get enough water. Obviously the temperature needs to be correct. The temperature of our biome is, we make sure it doesn't go below 18 degrees Celsius ever. And the reason for that is because basically, if it goes below 18 degrees Celsius, a lot of the plants very, very quickly are going to be irreparably damaged. So we have backup generators in the event that we lose all power at Eden Project. We can still turn those generators on and blow warm air into our biomes if it was snowing, for example, so our plants are kept alive.
All right. Oh my gosh, Robbie, such a good connection today. It is absolutely beautiful there. Yeah, so jealous. What about animals? I think we saw a little bit of some ants on the taro leaf, which I can never get tired of watching the water run off of that leaf. But are there any other animals that might be found within the biome?
Absolutely, yeah, there are. The best spot to find the geckos is actually a bit of a trek from here. I'm not quite sure I'll get there now, but we've got geckos, and we've got white tree frogs. We've got these birds called rurals, which are like ground-dwelling partridges, and I'll see if I can find one. There's usually hundreds of them around, and right now I can't see one. But the reason for all of those is because they help us with the biocontrol. So they eat a lot of the pests that attack the plants, which is really important for us because we'd much rather have animals in here doing that job than have to use, lots of insecticides, for example, to control the bugs. So it's what we call integrated pest management.
All right, very cool. Robbie, I'm going to bring a camera class in here. We have the Phoenix School. They're hanging out with us in the US. They're in Massachusetts. So I'll give them a second to turn their camera on because we would love to steal a couple questions from their group. They usually have a ton of really good questions. So we'll get them here into the call. A reminder as well that after we say goodbye to Robbie today, I've got a Kahoot quiz ready about Eden projects. We'll play our Kahoot quiz together. And then Phoenix School, if you are there, we're ready to bring you in. And you can ask a couple rainforest questions. There they are. Let me bring them in. Hey, Phoenix School. There they are. Awesome. Does anybody have some rainforest questions for us? All right, I see some hands. Let's get going. Oh, Bud, can you go ahead and unmute? The mic's on mute, so I can't hear you yet.
You said go.
Perfect.
My name is Jeremy, and my question is, what's the average temperature in there?
Ooh, it's a good question. It does vary quite a lot. In the really hot days, obviously heat rises. So at the top of our biome, where it's 55 meters tall, it can get up to like 42, 43 degrees Celsius. On average, it's probably much less than that. We're talking, more like probably 26, something like that generally. So I mean, it's not as hot as a real tropical rainforest would be. Nowhere near it, but it does have times where it gets very, very hot.
All right.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Get us started. All right, let's get another one going. We'll steal maybe 2 more from your group before we maybe grab another one from YouTube.
Hi, my name is Sava, and I'm in 7th grade, and I was wondering, how do those plants become hydrophobic? Like, are they like that from birth, or is it like just something that happens over time?
My camera's. So I mean, it's an adaptation. It's a genetic. You know, it's genetic. It's written into their genes. So they are born. You know, no, sorry, they're not born. They grow. They germinate. They grow. And they have that quality even when they are very young and delicate. So it's not something that they acquire throughout their lives.
All right, let's snag one more question.
My name is Jerry, and my question is, how many species of plants are there in there?
Ooh, yeah. So about 1,000, probably a bit more, maybe 1,200. About 1,200 different species, probably. And like I said, you know, from across the world's rainforests. But that doesn't mean we haven't taken them from the rainforest to bring them here. What we've done is we've got a big plant nursery, and we've taken a lot of these plants. We've been given seeds of these plants, and we've grown these plants and transplanted them into our biome. Or some of the seeds have come from another nursery in Europe that we've and then we shipped these plants in.
All right, very cool. Thanks, Phoenix School. Those were some great questions. Okay, one more. I see lots of hands, so let's do one more, and then I'll take a YouTube question. Then we'll let Robbie carry on with his day. He's got a busy day at Eden Project.
What are some main? What are the majority of plants in there? Like, what plants do you see the most?
Ooh, in our rainforest biome, I mean, one of the plants that we see quite a lot all over the place is the papaya, and that's actually not because we necessarily plant it everywhere. It's because the birds that are in here eat the fruits, and when they eat the fruits, they can't digest the seeds, so they poop the seeds out all over our rainforest biome. And then where those seeds land, obviously they've been deposited with a nice package of fertilizer. Then those seeds germinate, and they grow into seedlings, and they grow into new papaya plants. So there's quite a lot of papaya here, but it's kind of by accident.
All right, Phoenix School, we're going to meet one of our Darwin leaders in a little bit. So we'll come back to you for some more questions. We'll get questions from YouTube as well. Robbie, one more question here from YouTube for you about invasive species. Do you ever have issues with invasive species in the biome?
It's not something that I've had many conversations about. It's in terms of plants so much, but we do have, we have an awful lot of insects, and the insects will come in with plants. If we buy in plants that are already saplings, when they come in with soil, and obviously that can bring particular pests that we'd rather not be in here, which damage the plants. There's also a certain type of fungus called fusarium wilt, which is actually spreading the globe at the moment, which is also in our soil here, I believe. So yeah, it does happen. And the other thing is the other way around as well. We don't want our plants that are in here to actually sort of leave the biome and start growing outside. Now, it's pretty unlikely because conditions are not going to be, tropical plants aren't going to like it. But still, we have to be careful about that sort of biosecurity side of things.
All right, very cool. Well, Robbie, thank you again. It's been so long since we've connected. It was back at the beginning of the voyage. We had a few calls with you. We had Tom in the background, but it's so great to see Eden, to see it thriving. And it looks like it's getting warm. So we'll let you get back to your office and get a little bit of work done.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, thanks. It's been great to speak today, and really good to connect with everybody. So thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks so much, Robbie. We'll connect again soon.
Cool. Cheers. Bye.
See ya. All right. So from the rainforest, while Robbie was taking us around the beautiful biome at Eden, I pulled together a little Kahoot quiz. So we're going to play that Kahoot quiz here together. I'm going to load it up on my screen and remind everybody that you can take part in the Kahoot quiz in a variety of ways. Maybe you have one-to-one technology at your seat, like a Chromebook or a tablet. You could join that way. If not, your teacher can pop up in front of the room, shout out your answers to him or her. Worst case scenario, if you can connect, still play along and see how you do. So I'm going to share my screen here. Make sure I pick the right one. There we go. You need to go to kahoot.it. So kahoot.it. And then once you get there, it's going to ask you for a PIN number. Today's PIN number is a nice short one. It is 63141. 63141. If you're joining from home today, you can also scan the QR code. If you scan the QR code on maybe your tablet or your phone, that will bring you directly into the event. Then you'll get your awesome animal auto-generated name, like the adorable eagle and the gentle jaguar, who have already come in here and joined us. When we wrap up with that, we will meet our Darwin leader who is joining us today. And then we've got our experiment and our curiosity of the week to wrap up today's world's most exciting classroom. We'll see if we can land it in under an hour, but we usually kind of go just a little bit over because we have so much content for your classrooms. So today is 5 questions. There's some true and false. There is some multiple choice. And as always, the quicker you put in the right answer, the more points you are going to get. So I'm going to give it about, let's say 30 seconds for a few more classrooms to make their way in. And then we will go live with our Kahoot and we will see who comes out on top. Remember that for the winning classroom, there is a £50 Amazon gift card that we will send to your class. All right, so I think we are about ready to get things going, and we'll see how things go today with our Kahoot. So here we go. It's going to count us in, about a 3-second count in, and then we will be live with that Kahoot action. Here we go. All right, first question coming your way is a true or false question. Eden Project is the world's largest captive rainforest. True or false? Eden Project is the world's largest captive rainforest. All right, didn't fool anyone with that one. About the size of 2 football fields, 55 meters high, the domes that go over the rainforest. So it is a massive indoor rainforest in the middle of the UK where you would definitely not expect to find a rainforest. Yellow swan is in first place. Let's jump to our next question. It is multiple choice. So about how many species of plants did Robbie say are in the biome? Was it about 50? Was it about 500? Was it about 1,000? Or was it about 2,000? So about how many species of plants did Robbie say are found within the biome at Eden? You've got about 10 seconds to lock in an answer. Oh, there we go. Whew, you guys are on fire today. So about 1,000 species of plants in the biome. And if you remember, Robbie said about 50% of the plants and animals on Earth are found within the rainforest, which is pretty cool. And they only cover about 3% of the planet. Yellow swan, holding on to that top spot. We've got another question coming your way. How fast can giant bamboo grow each day? Did Robbie say it's about 10 centimeters, about 40 centimeters, about 100 centimeters, or about 140 centimeters? So giant bamboo, it grows really fast, but is it about 10, 40, 100, or 140 centimeters each day? Okay, so about 40 centimeters a day. That is huge. If you think about a ruler is about 30 centimeters. So add 10 centimeters to that. That's a lot of growth. There's a plant that can grow more, giant kelp. can grow up to 1 meter in a day, which is pretty crazy. Red sable is stolen the top spot. We have a true and false coming your way. Coffee is not a very popular rainforest product. Is that true? Or is that false? That coffee, not a very popular rainforest product. All right, that's right. That is absolutely false. I would say, other than maybe timber, coffee is probably the most popular, the most widely used rainforest product around the world. And so we saw the coffee plant, we saw the green beans, and as they ripen, they're going to turn red. And so sometimes we visit and Robbie's been able to squeeze the red bean and it'll pop out from inside that kind of fleshy, fruity covering, which is kind of cool to see. Ooh, yellow swan coming back in the lead. We have one more question to decide today's Kahoot quiz. Which plant has the largest seed in the world? Was it the coconut, the coco de mer, the coffee bean, or the mango? So which plant had the largest seed in the world? Was it coco de mer? Was it coconut, coffee, or mango? All right. Oh man, our crew was sharp today. It is the coco de mer, found only on a few islands. It has the largest seed in the world. All right, here we go. Heading to the podium. In third place, we've got the rockstar seal. Good job. Second place, we've got the red sable. And in first place, the yellow swan. Did a little bit of movement, but the yellow swan managed to get back up there and hold on to that top spot. Good job, crew. We always love playing our Kahoot together. I am going to put a banner up on the screen with an email address. If you are the classroom with the yellow swan, I need you to send me a message, classroom@darwin200.com, classroom@darwin200.com. Let us know that you're the winning crew, and then we will send you your £50 Amazon gift card. So classroom@darwin200.com. Okay, let's get our next speaker in here with us. We have been bouncing around a little bit. I'm here in Canada. We were just in the UK with Robbie, and now we're going to head to Brazil, where we have Duda Mangassi joining us. She is an incredible biologist. I had the pleasure of meeting her in person in Rio when the Darwin 200, when the Oosterschelde visited. And then she was a Darwin leader and was able to go and visit the Galapagos, one of the most incredible places on the planet. Let's get her in here with us live right now. Hey, Duda, how are ya?
Hi, Joe. I'm doing fine. Here, warm weather over here.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's probably coming into late spring, early summer for you right now.
Yeah, actually early spring, but
okay.
It feels like summer already.
Yeah, I can imagine. I remember sleeping on the ship and the weather was over 40 degrees. It was so hot below deck on the ship.
Yeah, you were here in November, so it was already like summer pretty much in. Now we are facing like a very dry year, so in the heat is very high as well. So even though we're still in October, it's already pretty high up, like the temperature.
Yeah. Well, Duda, I would love if you took a moment, just introduce yourself to the classrooms joining us today. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So nice to meet you all. I'm Duda. I'm here in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. And I'm actually an environmental journalist. So I'm not really a biologist, although what I do sometimes look like, because I'm always like investigating stories regarding biodiversity and telling those stories to people. And that's pretty much my passion. I also work here with the golden lion tamarins in Rio, which are an amazing primate, very charismatic and cute. I don't know if you had the chance of seeing it. Otherwise, I recommend you Google it, golden lion tamarin. They are orange fur, and they're like pretty much, this size and long tail. They are amazing creatures, and I have the opportunity of working with them here in Rio, and also reporting biodiversity from across Brazil, which is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. So pretty lucky.
Yeah, I had such an amazing time visiting the Golden Lion tamarins. We were really lucky and got to see some of them in the wild. Can you just maybe summarize that story briefly? Because they're endemic. They're only found in the part of the world that you are in. And their numbers were so low. So how low did the numbers get? And where are they now with really good conservation work?
Yeah, so in the 70s, the estimate was that there were less than 200 individuals of golden lion tamarins in the wild. And that was due mostly to deforestation. Rio de Janeiro is a part of Brazil that was like heavily occupied from the beginning of Brazil's colonization. So it was heavily deforested. And also wildlife trafficking, all that made the golden lion tamarin got to a really bad place, into like the brink of extinction pretty much. And that rose that sounded the alarm for the researchers that were studying the species back then. And then they started like an effort to try and save the species. And that's when like the conservation program for golden lion tamarin kind of started, although in a more informal way. And then on the 90s, the Golden Lion Tamarin Association was created exactly to coordinate that effort and made it more effective. And now we have 4,800 golden lion tamarins in the wild, according to our last census that was that was made last year. So that's like it's such a great story of how a conservation effort can be successful. Of course, we are still dealing with threats. The species is still threatened. It's classified as endangered, so we're not already free of the risk of extinction, but we are working for it, and it has been rewarding so far with all this recovery that the species had, and we're hoping to get even better results in the future, especially through restoration of forests, investing in connectivity, and also the awareness of people, so we can prevent wildlife trafficking and stuff like that.
All right. It is a great success story. Of course, there's more work to be done, but it just shows nature's resilient with some good conservation, a little bit of help. Good things can happen. So, Judah, you got to go to the Galapagos, which is pretty darn great place to be a Darwin 200 leader. We're going to play your video in just a moment, the first video, but can you give us maybe just a quick summary of the project you were working with?
So when people think of Galapagos, they often think of like the giant turtles, tortoise, the sea life, all that. But I actually got to work with a tiny scavenging beetle, less than 5 millimeters. And the interesting thing is that the researchers that are studying this tiny species, they are looking for what they believe could be the middle of an evolutionary process. So this tiny beetle that used to have functional wings is progressively, in some places, losing this ability. That's the hypothesis they're looking for. And I went with them to the field to join them in the search for those beetles. And they collected in different heights. This tiny beetle, Galapagos is an archipelago, and this tiny beetle only occurs in 2 of the islands. One is Isabella, which is the biggest one, and the other one is Fernandina, which is right next to it. And then they went there and they collect the insect in different heights to understand like if maybe there is an influence of like, okay, by the coast they're still with the functional wings, by higher altitudes where they have humid forests and more abundance of resources and less need of move big distance, they might not have functional wings anymore. So that's what they are studying, and that was what I went with them to the field to register this work.
All right, very cool. Let's take a look at the video together now, and then we'll take a couple questions. So this will load up here, and here we go. Should come up now.
There is no place in the world where Charles Darwin's legacy is more alive than the Galapagos. The archipelago, about 1,000 kilometers from the continent, was a living laboratory for the British naturalist during his voyage on the Beagle. Its 13 islands, each one with particular natural settings, allow Darwin to see how differences in the environment can benefit changes that end up creating new species looking for the best chance at survival. It's the living proof of natural selection and how species evolve into what they are today. Like the giant tortoises of Galapagos, that adapted according to the island features, like having a longer neck and different types of shell. But today, we are looking at a much smaller, yet also fantastic creature. Today, the evolution story takes us underneath the ground. This is the land of the scavenging beetle.
I'm Duda Menegassi, Darwin Leader from Brazil, and I'm here to follow the scientists from Charles Darwin Research Station while they unfold this potential new chapter of evolutionary history.
In the whole Galapagos, there are about 400 species of beetles. Around 270 of them are endemic species, which means they can only be found in nature here. And they are very important pieces of these ecosystems.
Los escarabajos en general, pues es un grupo invisibilizado muchas veces, pero verdaderamente el rol que cumplen en los ecosistemas es muy importante. Desde el reciclaje de nutrientes, dependiendo del grupo de escarabajos. En este caso vamos a estudiar la familia Scarabaeidae. Esta familia, su ciclo de vida comprende netamente en el suelo. Entonces, uno de los servicios ecosistémicos más importantes es el reciclaje de nutrientes. Es decir, reincorpora los nutrientes o la materia orgánica que se encuentra en superficie al suelo, en donde se puede desarrollar mejores ecosistemas, mejor pasto, mejor bosque. Las semillas pueden tener acondicionamiento en donde pueden germinar mejor.
Today, we are looking for one specific species of scavenging beetle, known by science as Ataenius scarabagnoi.
With less than 5 millimeters, this beetle is smaller than a human nail.
This species, endemic to the Galapagos, can only be found in the Isabella and Fernandina Islands, and the researchers believe that the population here on Isabella might be losing its ability to fly. The reason? They just don't need it anymore.
Natural selection is incredibly simple, and there are really only 4 things you need to remember. Firstly, a population is what natural selection works on. It doesn't work on species and it doesn't work on individuals. And a population is a group of individuals that are from the same species that form a breeding population. The second thing is that all species have variation. And you can see that amongst human populations. Some are tall, some are short, some have brown eyes, some have blonde hair. And that is variation. That's natural variation. We inherit that variation from our biological parents. So if you're incredibly tall, you're more than likely going to have incredibly tall offspring. And then the final thing is that in the wild, there's what we call a struggle for existence. And this means that not all living things survive long enough in order to have healthy offspring. So not all of them will survive. And if those individuals have a characteristic that just gives them a very slight advantage over other individuals, then that characteristic may be what we call selected for within that population. And if it's really successful, that will become quite a dominant characteristic in the population.
Isabella Island has a big variety of landscapes. From the sea level by the beaches, where it's more arid and vegetation is more scarce, to the higher volcanoes that shape the island's mountainous scenery, and all the forests in between. In a place where the beetle finds everything they need within a close range, going far becomes just a waste of energy. And something as wings might become useless.
En la parte baja es donde se encuentran estos que tienen las alas de un tamaño normal, y en la parte alta vamos a encontrar quizás aquellos que tienen la reducción alar, ¿sí? Esta es una hipótesis, porque cuando tú vuelas, digamos que es una inversión de recursos para el insecto. Entonces, si estamos en un ambiente en donde no es beneficioso, digamos, el vuelo, o sea, el costo es muy alto, entonces lo que se cree, o sea, es una hipótesis, es que se van a reducir estas estructuras para ahorrar precisamente este costo energético.
To be able to make this research though, first, we need to find some new specimens of those beetles that haven't been collected for more than 10 years. Join me in the next chapter of this adventure and follow the scientists as they go through the island in the search of this incredible insect.
All right, Duda, that came together so well. I can't wait to be able to share the other two videos as well. But the first one is a great introduction, and what a beautiful, beautiful spot those islands are. I think we should grab a couple questions here. We have the Phoenix School hanging out with us in Massachusetts, so I'm going to bring them in and see if they have any questions about your time in the Galapagos and, of course, those super cool beetles. All right. I do see some questions, so it looks like we're getting ready. We'll get the microphone unmuted, and then we'll take a couple questions.
And go.
Like in the first, okay, my name is Ezra and I'm in 4th grade. Like in the first video, I saw that there was an incredible creature that was in the islands. And what's your favorite most animal that you liked about?
Hi, Ezra. That's a hard question because Galapagos has such amazing fauna, amazing animals. But I must say that my personal favorite was the marine iguanas. They look a bit like a dinosauric type of, like they're big creatures, and they're the only lizard that can survive in the salt water. They're so fantastic. They are so fantastic, and they're great swimmers, and they just chill in places around the island, like taking sun and chilling. They are amazing.
Very, very cool.
Ray. Ella.
All right, here comes Ella.
My name is Ella, and I'm in 4th grade, and I was wondering, are there more than one species of that beetle, or is it just one?
Hi, Ella. So there are over about 400 species of beetles in general, but there was one species that we were studying, and there are other 3 species that are very similar with that one that occur in other islands of the Galapagos. So that's something really cool when you study natural selection, is like you have different islands, and each one has one tiny scavenging beetle of its own. But on Isabella, we had that one. We had actually 2. There was another species of scavenging beetle as well, but we were looking to that one species. Very scientific, hard name to pronounce, Ateanus cravagnoi, but I hope I'm saying it right.
All right. Phoenix School, let's squeeze in one more question for Duda.
Done one. So Audrey. Okay, I missed it out.
My name's Audrey. I'm in 8th grade. And what's like your favorite thing about your job? Like what like inspires you?
Great question, Audrey. And I think that what inspires me the most are the greatest stories I find when I'm looking for those works that scientists do and people that work with conservation. I just told you about the story of golden lion tamarins, and that's a great example of how, you can have hope, and that's what I think we need so much those days. We have big problems as a planet we need to face, and if we don't have hope, I think it's harder to move forward. And that's what I love, that with my work I get to find those stories and tell them to the world. And not only I can try and inspire other people, but then I inspire myself with those stories.
All right. Phoenix School, give us a big wave. Thank you so much for those awesome questions today. Depending on your time, if you have time to stick around after the event, I'll stick around and do a couple bonus questions with you if you guys have time and you have Darwin 200 questions. Duda, thank you so much. One quick question here from YouTube. Speaking of vestigial wings, so, it looks like the beetles might be losing their ability to fly. There's the cormorants as well. So someone here on YouTube is wondering if you saw any of the flightless cormorants on Isabella or Fernandina.
Unfortunately, I didn't. I tried to, but we had a very tight schedule on the island because, we were doing the work with the beetles. And I really wanted to see the flightless cormorant because it's, of course, another example of species that, loses the ability of flight because it just doesn't need it anymore. But yeah, I wasn't fortunate to have that encounter.
Just means
I'll have to come back.
Exactly. Duda, thank you so much. It looks like you had an amazing time. It was great to see you in Rio. Great to see you as a leader in the Galapagos. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of that experience with us today.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Phoenix School, and all of you watching on YouTube.
All right. Thanks, Duda. Okay. Well, we need to wrap up today with our experiment. So 2 weeks ago, your experiment was to try growing some herbs. So oftentimes you can go into where like a grocery store and find live herbs or take cuttings from herbs that are growing. So let's take a look and see how Stu's herbs grew in the Darwin studio. Let's get this file loaded up. And here we go. Let's take a look.
Welcome back, everyone. It's been 3 weeks since I set up my experiment to try and get cuttings of herbs to produce roots and grow. And I've had quite mixed results. Wasn't really expecting this, but the basil cuttings died really quickly and didn't produce any roots at all. So I replaced them with some cuttings of rosemary. These rosemary cuttings have been in water for about 10 days, but they still haven't produced any roots at all. They seem to be growing quite well and seem to be healthy, but there's definitely no roots produced yet. The thyme cuttings also haven't produced roots, but they are growing well. Interestingly though, the mint cuttings have produced loads of roots. Look, they're almost filling these test tubes. These are now ready to pot up. You can plant them in compost and grow them in pots on your classroom windowsill, or plant them directly outside into a herb garden, and they should produce lots of lovely, delicious mint leaves that you can use in salads or in mint tea. I'm going to leave this experiment running for a few weeks longer and see if the rosemary and thyme do eventually produce roots. How did you get on? I'd love to see any photos or videos of the results of your experiment. Send them in to classroom@darwin200.com. Good luck in growing your herbs, and I hope you have a very productive herb garden. Thank you for taking part.
All right, we have a brand new experiment coming your way, which is perfect for this time of year. With autumn, fall approaching, the weather getting colder. Now, birds, a lot of them migrate, but before they do, they need energy before they do that. Also, sometimes they don't, so food gets scarce, and so it's important they have a food source in the winter. So this week's experiment is building your own bird feeder and then taking some pictures of the birds that come and visit it. So let's take a look at the feeder that Stu has built. You could build one similar or maybe a slightly different design, but then send us in some pictures and videos. But let's take a look at Stu's feeder, and then 2 weeks from now, we'll see which birds came and visited that feeder.
Welcome back, everyone. In today's activity, you can find out what species of feathered friends you have in your garden, at school or at home. We're going to make our very own bird feeder. This is really simple. All you need are some cardboard tubes. These can be toilet paper tubes or kitchen roll tubes. Really, any dimensions or size will work fine. You need some peanut butter, ideally smooth peanut butter, not the crunchy type. You need some bird seed and a piece of string. First, take a cardboard tube. I'm going to use this kitchen roll tube, I think, and cut it so it's about 15 to 20 centimeters or so long. Then, open your peanut butter, take out a good chunk, and carefully coat the peanut butter all over the outside of your tube. You don't need to put too much on. This is basically to enable the bird seed to stick, so it doesn't have to be very thick. If your peanut butter isn't spreading very well, just heat it up a little bit in the microwave, but with a bit of careful spreading, you should be able to get a nice even coating all over your tube. A little bit more to go, and then I think my tube is completely covered in peanut butter. Next, get the piece of string and very carefully thread it through the tube. Pull it very carefully through. There we go, and we'll just hold that there for a second. Then pour on an even coating of birdseed onto a plate. And you have to then roll your sticky peanut butter covered tube in the birdseed. Look at that. Wow. The seed is sticking to the peanut butter, so it's getting absolutely coated. Press it down a few times and make sure you get all of the seeds covering every little patch of peanut butter. The more seeds you get on, the better. Doesn't that look tasty for the birds? They're going to absolutely love that. There we go. I think I've completely covered my tube in seeds now. Then get the two ends of the string and tie them in a knot at one end. And then your bird feeder is pretty much ready to go. Try and find a good position so it's not completely exposed and open, but equally you don't want a place that's completely covered in undergrowth and difficult for the birds to reach. So the edge of a hedgerow or underneath a tree, these are really good places where you can attract birds, but remember they need to be able to see it to notice it. Once you put up your bird feeder, go inside and watch it from the window. Write down how long it takes for the first birds to notice it and come and start pecking at all of these seeds. And if you can, try and identify how many species of birds come and eat from your birdseed feeder. I'm going to hang this up in my back garden and record how many species of birds come to eat these delicious seeds. You can download a record sheet from www.darwin200.com to record how many species of birds come to eat from your bird feeder. Send in a copy of your results sheet to classroom@darwin200.com over the next 2 weeks for a chance to win a £50 Amazon gift voucher prize. Join me in 2 weeks' time to find out how many species of birds came to visit my bird feeder. Good luck and see you then.
All right, so perfect for the fall, the autumn. Very easy bird feeders to make. You could also, if you want to, you could take like a milk or a juice carton and make a bird feeder that way. But we would love to hear about the species of birds that come and visit your feeder at home or at your school. And then, of course, if you can get some pictures and send them to us, that's always really fun as well. So 2 weeks to try this bird feeder experiment. Remember the email, classroom@darwin200.com. That is our email. So we want to hear from our Kahoot winning classroom today. We'd love to see some bird feeders and some of the birds that visit over the next 2 weeks sent to classroom@darwin200.com. And lastly, we have our curiosity of the week to wrap up today. Again, 1 week to think about a new curiosity and send your answer to classroom@darwin200.com. But first, we need to take a look at the answer to last week's curiosity.
Welcome back, everyone. Last week, I asked you to try and identify this strange pair of objects. Could you work out what these are? Well, we received a lot of guesses and a few people got it absolutely correct. Believe it or not, these are called sea potatoes. You can see why by their shape and size. They do look a bit like regular potatoes. They actually belong to a group of animals called echinoderms. This includes starfish and sea urchins. They're quite closely related to sea urchins, and just like sea urchins, they're covered with a very fine coating of spine-like structures, which they use to move around and also for defense. There are many species of sea potatoes around the world, and many of them live just below the sandy surface. They can bury themselves by moving all of the tiny little spine-like structures. When the sea potato dies, all those spines fall away, so all we're left is the skeleton-like structure that contains the animal's body. They're quite easy to find on seashores, particularly in the tropics, and when you find them on the beach, they look just like this, with this amazing dark coloration showing the intricate patterns all over them. But if you put them in bleach, they turn pure white, just like this one. These were found on Lord Howe Island near Australia, but there are hundreds of species right the way around the world, in all different shapes and sizes. Did you guess the identity of these objects correctly as sea potatoes? Let's find out who won this week's prize. Thank you for taking part.
All right. So as Stu mentioned, we had lots of good guesses, which is always a lot of fun. A lot of guesses of sand dollars. And you can see why. They're very similar looking. Sand dollars are much more flat and much more compressed. So thank you to all the groups who sent in your amazing guesses for sea potato. And we need to wrap up by sharing this week's curiosity. So let's get that video queued up and let's see what we're going to have to think about this week.
This curiosity of the week is this cluster of transparent crystals. Can you guess the identity of this mineral? There is a very good clue as to what its name is, and I can show you that by turning out the lights. If I turn on this ultraviolet light torch, these crystals should fluoresce. And look at that! That colour is amazing. Bearing in mind these crystals fluoresce, can you guess what type of mineral this is? Send in your best guess to classroom@darwin200.com for a chance to win a £50 Amazon gift voucher prize. Good luck and thank you for taking part.
All right, so there you go. 1 week for our curiosity of the week, classroom@darwin200.com. What do you think that mineral is? Stu gave an incredible clue. from the Darwin studio for you. It's got that very unique quality under the UV light. So definitely send in your answers, classroom@darwin200.com. Now, you know that we have worked with the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth for several live events since we set sail. And we love doing live events with them. They have a really cool series of live events of their own coming up that I have a little clip to share with you. So classrooms from all over the world can take part and join in. And they've teamed up with one of our really cool partners. So let's take a look at the event coming up and see how your classroom can get involved.
For the first time ever, the Ocean Conservation Trust are teaming up with the Eden Project.
That's us!
Wherever you are in the world, your class can join Virtual STEM Fest for free! Travel back in time with us in this Darwin-inspired, evolution-themed session, where we will be exploring the amazing adaptations of animals from right here at the UK's National Aquarium. We'll then jump into the rainforest biome at the Eden Project to see how different plant species adapt to their environments. Designed for upper Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 students, this national curriculum-linked adventure will take place on the 22nd of October. No permission slips, no coaches, and best of all, no payment. Learn all about evolution and adaptation from the comfort of your very own classroom on our virtual interactive tour and workshop.
We can't wait to see you on the 22nd of October.
To book, please visit the Ocean Conservation Trust website and click the Education tab. The Virtual STEMFest page will give you all the information you need.
All right. So how cool is that? It is Darwin themed, a virtual STEM Fest with the National Marine Aquarium of Plymouth, as well as Eden Project in Cornwall. So two amazing groups that we work with here for our world's most exciting classroom events on a regular basis. October 22nd, check it out. Join with your classrooms if you can. I think you'll have a really, really good time. Well, that's it for us from the world's most exciting classroom. Thanks for hanging out with us. As I mentioned, the Oosterschelde is hanging out, getting some well-deserved R&R, the crew, getting some maintenance to the ship. I'm sure they'll be painting and splicing and working on all different aspects, testing radios and things like that, because we still have a long journey ahead of us as we travel around the world following Charles Darwin's voyage of the Beagle. The last thing we're going to do for this week is a shout out to our sponsors, our supporters, our partners, without whom we wouldn't have the world's most exciting classroom. We wouldn't be sailing around the world. We wouldn't have researchers joining us doing amazing projects. And we definitely wouldn't have our Darwin leaders like Duda, who join us in different ports and gain invaluable conservation experience. So that's how we'll wrap for today. We'll see you next week at the same time, 9 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock in the UK for another world's most exciting classroom.